The first years realized that all I have to do is put the hat on. Not to take a test.
What happens if you stop? And what happens if you're scared?
Welcome back, witches, wizards, and muggles, to Squibs Corner. I am Jeremiah.
And I am Andrew.
And today, we're just going to jump straight into this chapter. Today, we are doing Chapter 7 of the Philosopher's Stone, the Sorting Hat. And before we go any farther and forget our minds, we're going to do the 7-word summary. So much music, but you know what? If it brings you or us joy, oh, it's so worth
I love it. Oh, yeah. I love it.
Go ahead. This is your chapter. Lead us.
Because this is the Sorting Hat. We love the Sorting Hat. Because of him. Finally, Harry Potter has found his family.
It's great. His nice, polite, loving family, not the Dursleys that are the total, complete opposite of nice, loving. Ooh. Yeah. So, my 7-word summary, I think it about sums up a big point to this chapter. We welcome the 4 houses of Hogwarts.
Okay.
Yes.
I like
it.
I like it. Like it?
Oh.
All right, let's jump right in. We do the 7-word summary shortly, followed by the first chapter, or the first paragraph of the chapter that we're talking about. And this starts, let's kind of give, we'll do the paragraph.
We can do a recap. Let's recap that chapter.
Let's recap
what we just did, yes.
Let's recap. Harry has finally made it to Hogwarts. That's what happened in the last chapter. He was able to find his way on a platform 9 3/4 thanks to a lovely family known as the Weasleys.
Oh, yes.
And he becomes pretty fast friends with Ron, the Weasley boy that's his age and also a first year. And Ron is pretty cool, so he explains several things on the train ride over to Hogwarts about the wizarding world, which is nice. We learn that he has several older brothers, but we meet the 3 older brothers, Percy, who's a prefect at 5th year, and then the mischievous twins, Fred and George, who are in their 3rd year. And we learned that he had Bill and Charlie, who are older brothers that no longer go to Hogwarts. They've graduated. One works for Gringotts, the Wizard Bank, and one deals with dragons, which is pretty darn cool. So then we meet Hermione Granger, who comes off at first as an annoying know-it-all. And hopefully that doesn't, tarnish how you feel about our lovely Hermione Jean Granger. We meet Neville, who can't find his toad and seems a bit of a clumsy person. We meet Draco Malfoy, who comes off as a pretentious prick. And
yes, very much so.
And then we meet his goons, his heavy
cronies.
hitters. Yeah, his cronies, right? His Crab and Goyle, they do his dirty work. So we make it to the end of the train ride, and we get to see Hagrid again, whom we love. And then Hagrid calls the first years over to him. First years get in boats, and then they sail up to the castle. And now we've made our way up the steps to the huge oak front door. And I can't remember, in the book, I wonder if it's always a huge one front door, because I feel like there are scenes where there's 2 front doors. I can never remember.
I would imagine it's 2 doors. I mean, anytime I think of a castle of any, it's either 2 doors, or it's the one door that kind of swings up. But I don't picture
like
a school
the drawbridge,
Yeah, I don't
type.
picture a school having that. So
no,
I would say double door. I mean.
Yeah,
that makes me want to go back to the movies and pay a little bit more attention.
Yeah, we're gonna pin it. We're gonna put a mental pin in that one just to see how we feel later. Okay, so that has gotten us up to here. So the door swung open at once. A tall, black-haired witch in emerald green robes stood there. She had a very stern face, and Harry's first thought was that this was not someone to cross First years. Hagrid says, first years, Professor McGonagall, said Hagrid. Thank you, Hagrid. I will take them from here.
That was good. I like that.
Over to you, my friend, after that beautiful synopsis and me botching the first paragraph of the 7th chapter.
Hey, man, it's all live. We learn as we go.
I love
We
it.
take it as we go.
That's right.
I like Hagrid trying to act like Professor McGonagall. That's good.
Yes.
All right, so Hagrid hands the first years over to Professor McGonagall. She takes him inside. The entrance hall is a massive space that could have fit the entirety of the Dursleys' house in it. Now, do you think... So, when you read could have fit the entirety of the Dursleys' house inside of it, do you picture the Dursleys' house perfectly fitting inside there, or do you picture the house kind of in one little space and there's still... You can barely tell it's there.
Not perfectly fit, because I think in the book it says like the ceiling was so high you couldn't really make it out. So we know that it's a tall entrance hall. But in typical entrance halls, like you go straight to get to the Great Hall, that would be huge, and then you've got the marble staircase there, and then you've usually got other doorways off. So it's not not a huge like ballroom conference center type thing like the Great Hall would be, but I would say it fits in there easily.
Because I know I've seen some movies where it's more or less Halloween stuff. They get down to the bottom of this dungeon that they found, and oh look, there's a house down here, but it's just taking up this small little portion. Kind of looks like a shed.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I picture,
Could.
I think. Yeah.
I mean, because when you look at the outside of Hogwarts Castle, like you see in the films,
yeah,
the thing is massive for there to only be 300 to 400 students, and then 7 teachers. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Like, what are they doing with all of that castle?
Hey, they're planning on having a lot of students eventually. They're going to take down all the other schools because there is other schools. But right now, we're inside Hogwarts. We see torches on the walls and magnificent marble staircases, all while the first years continue to follow Professor McGonagall. Now, the description... Okay, so you are 11. You're going to Hogwarts. You're used to electricity.
Light switches, sure.
Yes. You walk into this school filled with magic, and it's lit by torches, and I would imagine it's cold, possibly breezy, and a little bit damp. What are your first thoughts?
My first thought is like, this is magic. Like this is what we got. We walk in.
We light the torches with magic.
Yeah, it's like okay. But I mean, you remember like when he had to go get his school supplies, he got quill and parchment. So
right.
It's almost like she's associating, the medieval times with I don't know.
That's kind of what I get when I get the feeling of like old times, and I'm a collector of Harry Potter merch. So when they start making all the decrees later, I wanted so badly to make those, but just trying to look up the detail and the amount of work you would have to do to put into making those decree frames.
Sure.
Someone was very, very skilled at making those, and I did not want to attempt.
No, I don't blame you.
No. But now we're taken to a small room off the main hall, and she proceeds to welcome them to Hogwarts. She explains to them that the Sorting Hat is about to take place and emphasizes that while you're at Hogwarts, your schoolhouse is like your family. You will have classes with your house, sleep in the dormitories with your house, and spend free time in your house's common rooms. She also introduces the 4 houses that we all know and love: Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin, and that each house has its own noble history, and each has produced outstanding witches and wizards. And while they're at Hogwarts, they'll earn your house points, and any rule breaking will lose points. So I like this. I like that we have the 4 houses. We all know the 4 houses, but if you're going to a regular school, there's no 4 houses. So, magic aside, everything about this school, for Harry Potter at least, and for some of the other kids that didn't know they were a witch or wizard,
Sure.
around every corner, it's like, what? Wait, four houses? What?
Yeah.
You mean 4 grades? 4 different... No, 4 houses, huh? Okay.
7 years, 4 houses.
Yeah, and right off the bat, we're kind of introducing rules. If you break the rules, you're going to lose points. And this,
Sure.
this in future turns out to be a big deal, bigger in the books than it is in the movies, because people start getting angry and upset that they're losing points. In the movies, it's kind of brushed over, I think. So.
It even upsets me when I go on harrypotter.com and they have, like, they just had the 3 quizzes during October for Halloween. And you compete. When you join Harry Potter, I don't know if you've done that, but you can create a, an avatar on there. Like you can,
I have.
Yeah, let's hold on. Let's see if I can pull up a picture of my avatar. Here it is. All right, do you see that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's my over here. That's my avatar.
There you go. Yeah, I kind of got the same hair.
Much younger. But yeah, so they'll do quizzes and puzzles and stuff like that. And during holidays and stuff, they'll ask questions from the movies.
Nice.
And so, or from the movies, from the story, from the books, whatever. And you compete. And there's like hundreds of thousands. There's over 1 million people participating.
Yeah, when they had, it was years ago, 6 years ago, when they had the Hogwarts house tournament. I think it was on. I was super stoked about that, and I think it lasted like 1 season, and I was extremely disappointed that it didn't continue, because I was sitting on the edge of my bed like a kid in the candy store, super excited that something about Harry Potter was back on TV.
Yeah.
The Hogwarts House of Tournaments or something like that. Oh yeah.
Where they were basically, it was trivia, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I got all of it right.
And
so,
Helen wasn't Helen Mirren? Wasn't she the host? I can't remember who did that.
Yeah,
I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
I know what's his name? The kid that did the announcing for the Quidditch games.
Lee Jordan.
Yeah, Lee Jordan was there, and he'd always open up that. Yeah, that was nice. Anyways. So back to it. You earn points for your houses. Any rule breaking loses you points. At the end of the year, the house with the most points is awarded the House Cup, which is said to be a great honor. And then she leaves after telling them that the sorting will take place in a few moments. Again, you're alone in this castle, but I guess now you could look around a little bit. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, but got Harry Potter, 11 years old, doesn't know what to expect. I don't think he has the mental or emotional wherewithal at that point to be like, hey, let me just look around. No, he's nervous.
Where'd she go? What are we doing?
Yeah, well, what do you mean?
Huh?
What's the sorting? Okay, so he asked Ron,
Yes.
what's going on with the sorting? And he's like, oh, Fred and George told me that, or he goes, no, I think it's some sort of test. Fred and George told me that it hurts a lot. So now you've got Harry, who's nervous, and now it's like, so this test could be painful, and he's got to do it in front of the entire school. So he's obviously freaking out. And what's the worst thing that you can hear when you're anxious about a test or something? He hears Hermione Granger muttering all the spells that she knows, what spells she thinks she's going to know, and he's got to do his best to to tune that out. And the book says this is the most nervous he's ever been. So
And
he's
I like
sitting
that
there.
there. I like that there too. We have Hermione muttering everything she's learned. She's Muggle-born, so she must have just recently found out she was a witch and already has absorbed so much information. And the fact that she put that little tidbit right there just describes Hermione perfectly. You get a really good picture right there. Okay. Because there's those kids in school that do that. And you just, how do they remember all of that? I don't remember. I just studied and I don't know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
I was that kid. So,
Yeah. I mean, I have so many questions, for the other Muggle-borns. Like in the letter that Harry got, there were not train tickets. There were not directions to the Leaky Cauldron. There were no, it doesn't say, hey, you can get all of these things in Diagon Alley or Hogsmeade or other, other wizards. So Hermione, like, oh, I got this letter. I'm going to a wizarding school. Where is it? No clue. Where do you get your stuff? I have no idea. How do you get there? Literally, this doesn't say anything. Because when Hagrid and Harry leave, or they get done with Diagon Alley, they leave. He's like, oh, here's your train ticket for September 1st at 11 o'clock. So Hagrid hands them to him.
That begs the question, did Hagrid visit everybody? Does somebody visit everybody and kind of, give them the rundown like Hagrid did with Harry? Or
well, the only other person that we know that gets their invitation to school who is Muggle-born is Tom Riddle.
Yes.
And Albus Dumbledore does show up in person to explain it to him. So probably, even speaking this out, that makes so much sense that a representative from the school would come.
Representative, there you go.
Yeah, and be like, hey.
Now it sounds professional.
A representative that's not Hagrid. That would give them all of the information. And Dumbledore even, offered Tom Riddle, hey, I'll go to Diagon Alley with you. And he's like, no. So I'm sure they'd be like, Hermione, do you and your parents want to come with me? I bet it was McGonagall.
Just think if you sent Hagrid to every single student. I'm pretty sure that's a big no, because a 14-foot dude walking around is going to get the wrong kind of attention real quick.
Yeah. Okay, so Hermione's done a bunch of studying within the last couple months. That's frustrating Harry. So he's almost out of his mind with nerves, the most nervous he's ever been, and then boom. We get 20 ghosts gliding through the walls of the castle. Nobody warned Harry about ghosts. First thing he hears after he sees these ghosts, you see two ghosts having an argument about somebody named Peeves, which if you've only watched the films, you'll know you won't know who Peeves is.
You'll know nothing about Peeves.
You'll know nothing about Peeves. And then we find that one of the ghosts is a fat friar, which I kind of like that, because if I think from what I know from watching Robin Hood, and Friar Tuck was in there, the friar is part of the church. So how interesting it is that you'd have a character that's a member of the church who's also a wizard.
The Bloody Baron if you've ever watched the movie Hook, like, Peter Pan, and then there's the movie Hook, which is one of the greatest movies ever made. Robin Williams. True. It's my childhood. But exactly, the Bloody Baron looks 100% like Hook. I can only imagine she got... I mean, it makes sense.
Dustin Hoffman can play this character.
Exactly. It looks exact. I was like, that's Hook. Oh, wait, the Bloody Baron. What? Okay.
Yeah. So we meet the Fat Friar and the ghosts arguing about Peeves, but we'll kind of get into those characters in a minute, because Hermione or Professor McGonagall comes in, says, look, we're going into the Great Hall, form a line. So we read, this is when we first are introduced to the Great Hall, which is a very common place in the book and the movies. Harry had never even imagined such a strange and splendid place. It was lit by thousands and thousands of candles that were floating in midair over 4 long tables where the rest of the students were sitting. These tables were laid with glittering golden plates and goblets. At the top of the hall was another long table where the teachers were sitting. Professor McGonagall led the first years up here so that they came to a halt in a line facing the other students, with the teachers behind them. The hundreds of faces staring at them looked like pale lanterns in the flickering candlelight. Dotted here and there among the students, the ghosts shone misty silver. Mainly to avoid all the staring eyes, Harry looked upward and saw a velvety black ceiling, dotted with stars. He heard Hermione whisper, "It's bewitched, to look
like the sky outside."
I read about it in Hogwarts, a history.
Yes.
So,
it's just that one person. It's like, shut up.
yes, this is not
Stop
the
it.
time. This is not the time.
Yes. But I mean,
So-
I guess at that point, maybe you're impressed. Like, oh, okay.
You know what? I can't blame her, because here's what I do that I'm annoyed with myself.
Oh,
If I've read a book and then I watch the movie, maybe 50 times I'll to myself be like, it's not how it happened in the book. and my wife, who is a saint, she's like, we get it. We get it. You read the book and it's different. And I'm like, I'm not even like, it's just, I watch something, I'm like, no, that's not how it happened in the book.
yeah. That's. Isn't it amazing how, when it comes to film or books or music, we can remember that? I can hear a song that I heard 20 years ago and start singing it, but I can't remember what I researched for the podcast 20 minutes earlier. It's just, it's funny how that works. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, ha, ha.
Yeah, funny. Ha ha ha.
So Hermione teaches us that the ceiling has been bewitched, and then Professor McGonagall places a four-legged stool right in front of the students. And then she placed a pointy wizard's hat that was patched and frayed and extremely dirty. And while Harry was thinking about what he had to do with the hat, and everyone else he looks around, everybody else in the Great Hall is staring at it. So he goes, okay, well, if everybody else is staring at it, I guess I'll stare at it. And then within a moment or two, a crease comes across the hat, and then it begins to sing.
So I'm gonna let everybody out there know this is our second go. This is our second go at this chapter. And the first time we did this chapter, I learned that you can sing, and you forced me to sing this. So I'm gonna have you sing it this time.
I have to sing it?
Oh yes,
All
just
right,
like
all
the
right.
Sorting Hat.
No, that's Michael
Yeah,
Jackson.
there you go.
Okay. Sorting hat. Oh, you may not think I'm pretty, but don't judge on what you see. I'll eat myself if you can find a smarter hat than me. You can keep your bowlers black, your top hat sleek and tall, for I'm the Hogwarts sorting hat, and I can cap them all. There's nothing hidden in your head the sorting hat can't see, so try me on and I will tell you where you ought to be. You might belong in Gryffindor, where dwell the brave at heart. Their daring, nerve, and chivalry set Gryffindors apart. You might belong to Hufflepuff, where they are just and loyal. Those patient Hufflepuffs are true and unafraid of toil. Or yet in wise old Ravenclaw, if you've a ready mind, where those of wit and learning will always find their kind. Or perhaps in Slytherin you'll make your real friends. Those cunning folk use any means to achieve their ends. So put me on, don't be afraid, and don't get in a flap. You're in safe hands, though I have none, for I'm a thinking cap.
Yeah.
Wasn't really singing. It was just animated. It was just
Yes.
animated rhyming at that point.
Yeah, it's kind of how my accents go. I start off real strong, and then by the end, it's a completely different accent.
Yes.
So, good job. Yes, wait. No, keep cheering, because
I'd like to thank the Academy.
I could.
But
Yeah, there we go.
no, you're too kind.
Enough of that. Okay, so in the movies, the Sorting Hat, if it sings, it's little to none. So in the books, the Sorting Hat is very involved and very knowledgeable. It doesn't just tell you your house or kind of talk to you in your head. And it gives a lot of warnings and does these singings, and it's the book does the sorting hat a lot of justice. And even in the movies, they do not explain what the difference is in the houses. You're introduced to Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, Slytherin. I can't remember anything in the movies that explains to you the differences in the houses, save for Gryffindor versus Slytherin.
Sure, yeah.
So right here in that song, we had a little description of every single house. And it's enough to get your mind thinking on the different traits and qualities of the people that are placed within each house. So the fact that this is in the books and that she briefly explained, it didn't even take much. One little song explained every single house. I mean, we can go into extreme detail, and we will once we get to the founders. But for a child's book, perfect. Couldn't have done it better myself. So once that hat was done, everyone burst out into applause, just like we just did. I think we did a little bit better.
Yes.
The first years realized that all they had to do is put the hat on. They don't have to take a test or anything. There's no pain. So Ron was he's pretty upset.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna kill Fred and George.
Which I love that they put that sibling rivalry in there.
Yes.
So the relatability of this book is just through the roof.
Oh yeah.
Though Harry would have preferred not putting the hat on in front of the rest of the school, I'm right there with him. Professor McGonagall pulls out a scroll, not a piece of paper, not a tablet or a laptop, a scroll. And this parchment paper is a little yellowish in color.
I mean, it was 1991. There were no tablets at that time, so she can be forgiven.
Because in 1991 they were still using scrolls. So it's a wonder she didn't put her chisel in her piece of rock.
Yes.
But I love it though. It gives you a perfect setting inside of your head. You can't question what you're supposed to imagine. So I love it. She starts telling the first years that when she calls their name, they sit on the stool and put on the hat.
Easy peasy.
Simple enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we have Abbott Hannah is the first student called, followed by several others. Harry Potter was starting to feel sick. Okay, all right.
You know what this means.
The pop quiz.
Pop quiz time. Okay, so we know that Hannah Abbott is the first person called. What house does she get sorted into?
Hannah Abbott. Hufflepuff?
She is a Hufflepuff, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Who was the last person sorted in this chapter?
I want to say Ernie Macmillan, but I'm
M's? An M name you think is the last one sorted?
something.
I mean, we know the Pansy and Pansy Patel or the Patils were and Pansy, but we know there are definitely people past M.
Yeah. You got me. I don't know.
Blaze Zabini.
Zabini. Okay.
And what house was he sorted into?
Zabini. Slytherin?
Yeah, easily a Slytherin.
Yeah.
And last question of the pop quiz: who was the first Gryffindor sorted in this year?
Wouldn't it have been Hermione?
Nope.
Man,
before Granger. She's not a main character, but she does become very relevant later.
I can't think of the name.
I'll tell you this: Hermione doesn't like her.
Millicent Bulstrode?
That's a Slytherin.
Lavender
Brown.
Yes. She was in my head, but I just couldn't get the name out.
Okay.
Well, Podcast is over, I failed. So
Yeah, that was
next time we're going to be doing chapter
awful.
8. Yes. Yeah, that was awful. So, okay, back to it before I was rudely interrupted. Ugh. Harry. Harry was starting to feel sick as he awaited his name to be called. It's one of those situations, again, the relatability. You're dreading something so much, it gets to a point where you want to be the first one so that you could just get it over with.
Let's get it over with. Yes, let's get it over with.
I maybe you and your family are going to the dentist to all have, I don't know, fillings put in, and you want to be the first one, but you're the last one. You're the last one to go into that chair.
Like,
But as we know, there's no pain with this, so this is a bit better. Harry noticed that sometimes the hat immediately sorted out the student into their house, and others it took a little bit of time. One student sat on the stool for almost a whole minute, super long time, before being sorted. Hermione was immediately sorted into Gryffindor. Well, that sounds about right, and as we go, it is definitely right.
Which I don't think she should have been immediately Gryffindor. I think the hat would have really had a hard time between Gryffindor and Ravenclaw when it comes to Hermione.
I could kind of see Hufflepuff, too, but I definitely Gryffindor and Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
I think in the beginning she gave off more of a Ravenclaw vibe, but then as we go on, that Ravenclaw vibe kind of disappeared and full on Gryffindor.
Sure, yeah. Yeah. Once she went out at night under the cloak, she started breaking the rules.
It's all downhill from there.
Yeah, it was all downhill for the pure Gryffindor.
So Harry's mind started going to a bad place. Of course, look how he was raised. What if the hat didn't sort him into a house at all? What if he just sat there until Professor McGonagall yanked the hat off his head and said there had been some sort of mistake and he needed to go home? Oh, jeez. See,
Poor 11-year-old Harry.
when I was younger, I used to be able to tell people that were stressing out about, stuff like this or just things that seemed silly, like they had no control over it. Don't stress out about it. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. The amount of people that got mad at me could have overflowed a water glass because you can't just do that. I say, yeah, you can. And then as you get older, or at least me as I got older, I'm like, oh, they're right. Yeah, you can't just do that. So my mind now is where Harry's mind is. But when I was young, when I was his age, I didn't care. Whatever. The hat took a long time to place Neville into Gryffindor. So let's speak on Neville for a little bit. So if the Sorting Hat didn't put Neville in Gryffindor based on what you and I know, where else would he go? Because I don't see Ravenclaw. I could kind of see Hufflepuff. I guess
Yeah,
Hufflepuff.
he'd be Hufflepuff. Yeah, because later, like you talked about when we talk about the founders, later when actually I think it's next year, in year 2, when they're Chamber of Secrets, like why would Slytherin make some of that? So they started talking about, that's when you find out that he wanted to just restrict it to purebloods.
Yeah.
And then, Godric Gryffindor was like, well, here's what I want people. And Helga Hufflepuff was like, then I'll take all the rest. Right? That was her thing. Like, if there's magical blood in them, they will be here and they will do it. So that's why in, Hufflepuff, I guess, every house, but really Hufflepuff has just this wide range of students from the Cedric Diggories, and Newt Scamanders all the way to.
Because I could have swore I was going to get. Well, we'll get into that in the next chapter, but yeah, we'll get into that because we're going to do a side quest next chapter after this, and we're going to tell everybody what our houses are. But let's get back to it. The hat barely touched Draco's head before sorting him into...
Gotta be Slytherin.
Yes.
Just like his father.
Of course. And more students were also placed into their house. And now we get to... not Harry Potter, but Potter Harry.
Harry. Which has got to be the pinnacle of his anxiety.
Right.
He's seen how easy it is for them, but he's still like, oh, something's going to go wrong. So the first thing that happens, they call Harry Potter's name, and there's this wave, this ripple of whispering in the audience, in the Great Hall from the students, and we're reminded, oh yeah, Harry's famous. Harry's very famous in the Wizarding World. He's not just the protagonist, but everybody that's there has heard of him. And so he walks up, he sits down on the stool, and the hat was placed. I think it's kind of weird because in the book, it's like the hat goes over their eyes.
Especially Harry's, yeah. I knew it made a point to say it went over Harry's.
Yeah. So then, this is what happened. Said a small voice in his ear. Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind, either. There's talent. Ah, my goodness, yes. And a nice thirst to prove yourself. Now, that's interesting. So where shall I put you? Harry gripped the edges of the stool and thought, not Slytherin, not Slytherin, not Slytherin, eh? Said the small voice. Are you sure? You could be great, you know. It's all here in your head. And Slytherin will help you on the way to greatness, no doubt about that. No? Well, if you're sure, better be. And then audibly to the entire school, Gryffindor!
Yes.
Huge applause. It's what we all wanted.
Yeah, it's good.
My theory is that everybody, their first time reading the books or watching the show, wants to be in Gryffindor. Nobody gets to this point and like, I really want to be in Slytherin. I want the dark mark tattooed on my forearm.
Up to this point, yeah.
To this point, everybody's
up to
a
this
Gryffindor.
point, or
right
reading
here.
the whole. Okay, yeah. Okay,
right
yeah.
here, everybody is like, oh yeah, Gryffindor. That's
I'd
the house
imagine
you
so.
want to be in. Yeah.
And I think it's a point to it's so the Sorting Hat, if he's talking to the students like he's talking to Harry Potter, only Harry Potter can hear him. Again,
Right.
magic. But when he shouts out the house, obviously the hat can sing, they can hear him. So he has the ability to have private conversations with each student. So I thought that was a good thing to point out, because if the Sorting Hat were talking out loud for everybody to hear, everybody would have known the Sorting Hat wanted to place him in Slytherin. And in the movies, the Sorting Hat is talking very loud, and everybody's just staring at, Harry and the Sorting Hat. So I wish in the movies, they would have made a reference or something would have been like, well, the Sorting Hat can't hear, or the students can't hear this conversation. So, yeah.
Well, and could you imagine in year 2 if everybody in the school would have heard that Harry was almost put in Slytherin? Year 2, when you've got,
wow, yeah,
the enemies of the air beware. Oh, Harry would have been.
But instead, he gets to have a nice internal struggle. So
yes. Okay, so Harry is sorted into Gryffindor. As he walked wobbly over to the Gryffindor table, he could hardly notice that he was getting the loudest cheers yet, as he was just so relieved that he wasn't put in Slytherin. And he sits down at the table. He's finally able to see the staff table because they were standing in front of him. The staff was behind him. And he gets his first look at Albus Dumbledore. Now, he had already seen Albus Dumbledore on the Chocolate Frog card. But now he gets to see him in real life. And I love, correct me if I'm wrong, in the movie, when he looks up there, doesn't Dumbledore kind of look at him and, kind of give him a little head nod type deal?
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yes.
And then people are sorted. And now we've got Ron. Ron's placed into Gryffindor. Harry's like, I can finally, I'm just so relieved. He gets up. He bursts into cheers for his new friend. And then after everybody's been sorted, Professor Dumbledore gets up to say a few words before the feast. And he says, nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak. Thank you. And I love when that happens. He turns to Percy and he's like, "Is he mad?" And Percy's like, "Mad? He's the greatest wizard in the world."
Yes.
But yeah, he is a bit mad.
He is a bit mad.
And then Harry, and probably some of his favorite magic yet, his mouth falls open as he noticed the dishes that were once empty are now loaded down with some of the most delicious food that Harry had ever seen. The guy that's eating, Dudley's leftovers is now at Hogwarts.
So one of the best things about Hogwarts is the amount of food that you could eat. Instead of losing weight, or I've lost some weight and I'm kind of stagnant right now, which is fine. But I would gain all that weight back and then some.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean,
no, I would be. I wouldn't. If that was me, I wouldn't need Dudley's hand-me-downs during the summer break. I would need, like, bro, we're gonna have to share. We're gonna have to share.
So
magical food has no calories, though. So there's that.
Okay. Yeah, I would. Okay, let's more. Okay, you just gave me more reasons to want to go to Hogwarts. I don't. At this point, I don't care about the magic. I just want to eat all the food.
Yes.
So 2 things to point out here. The food appears in front of them. You cannot magic stuff from nowhere. So if you're thinking, I want a taco, you can't just have a taco appear. So all this food comes from the kitchen. So it's already been prepared. They're simply just using the magic to bring it to the tables. You cannot. So if you want something, it has to come from somewhere. I think what's the word that you use for that?
Which word is it?
It's that you can't just magic something from nothing.
Well, you have was it Gimp's law?
Gimp's
five
law, yeah.
Gimp's law.
Yeah, there it is.
We learn about it a couple of times in the book.
Yes, and then
but especially the
other thing to point out is nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak. So these sound like random words, and I always thought they were, but they're not. So nitwit is Ravenclaw, because you would call students of another house a nitwit since they are the smart house. Blubber represents Gryffindors. Gryffindors would call someone else blubber since Gryffindors are known to be very athletic, and those that are less so could merit the name blubber. So kind of like the jocks looking down at everybody else that's not on the sports team. Oddment is what Slytherin would call someone else if something or someone is oddment, then they are no longer useful or serve no purpose. Slytherins who are resourceful and goal-driven would call someone lesser an oddment. Finally, tweak represents what Hufflepuffs will call other students. Hufflepuffs are very down-to-earth, and when they see emphasis other houses put on their respective traits, Hufflepuffs might think that they need tweaking. So in other words, nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak is another way to say the houses. And only Dumbledore would, I would imagine he just came up with it. Yeah, it's like watching Family Guy. So you watch, I'm a Family Guy fan. I don't know about you. You're about the same age as I am. If you watch Family Guy with somebody that's not a fan, they sit there and go, oh, this show's so stupid. You have to be really stupid to watch this show.
Sure.
No, you have to be actually kind of somewhat smart to watch the show because it has to do a lot with politics and a lot with, what's going on in the world. And the jokes aren't just, for the most part, they're not just random made up jokes. It has something to do with, like, years later, 15 years later, okay, I get that one now. Or, wow, I can't believe they did that. Kind of like Dumbledore. His random words aren't so random when you go to think about it.
Yeah.
So,
knowing Dumbledore.
Yes, he is crazy, but he is very smart, yes. So, as Harry began to dig into his food, as I would, We hear a ghost say, "That does look good." He introduces himself as Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington, and he is the resident ghost of Gryffindor Tower. We also learn that he hasn't eaten anything in nearly 400 years, which I believe you have a little quarrel with what he is saying right here.
Yeah. So Nearly Headless Nick, or Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Poppington, he says, I haven't eaten in almost 400 years. And yet, in the next book, Chamber of Secrets, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, well, Harry is invited to Nearly Headless Nick's 500th Death Day party, which he was killed on October 31st. And so he's celebrating being dead for 500 years. So if in year one, he hasn't eaten in nearly 400 years, but in book two, we find out he's been dead for 500 years, he either shouldn't have been eating for nearly 500 years, or because they say in book two that they can't eat. That's why they have like the rancid fish and the moldy stuff.
Yes.
Because it gives off a stronger sense, but they're not eating it. So
I'm
we know that ghosts don't
wondering
eat. So there's a little inconsistency there.
Yeah, the only way that I could make it make sense is maybe 1 year is 100 year to ghosts. So
No, I'm not buying it.
Well, I
Not buying
tried. So
Get that out of here.
Ron calls him, like you just mentioned, Nearly Headless Nick. And Seamus, not Hermione, Seamus asked, how nearly headless? How could you be nearly headless? And we find out why, because he grabbed his left ear, pulled it, and his head fell over as if it was on a hinge. And it was a very bad beheading with, I believe, a blunt axe that went wrong, which leads him to great, tremendous heartache. It's like you're not miserable enough alive. Now that you're dead, you're even more miserable because you couldn't join the Nearly Headless Hunt.
Yes, the headless hunt.
Yes. Or the Headless Hunt. No, well, if
There
he
is
had
no
his
Nearly
way,
Headless Hunt. He'd be the
if
only
he had
member of
his
the
way, he
Nearly
would start
Headless
his own. Yes.
Yes.
So he then places his head back on his shoulders and asks if the Gryffindors are going to help win the House Cup. Not Clup. As Slytherin has won it 6 years in a row, which I don't know why she didn't go with the number 7. Number 7 is a big thing in this book. I feel like it should have been
Very
7.
magical number, yeah.
Yes. But now the Bloody Baron, the Slytherin house ghost, is becoming unbearable because of all the winning. Harry looked over to the Slytherin table and saw a horrible ghost sitting there with blank staring eyes, a gaunt face, and robes stained with silver blood. He was right next to Malfoy, who Harry was pleased to see didn't look too happy with the seating arrangements. When asked, well, why is he called the Bloody Baron? Nearly Headless Nick just responds by saying, he's never asked. You know, there's some things you just don't talk about. And now
do the movies explain who he killed? Where the blood came from?
I'm not sure, but I know it's talked about. I don't know if it's talked about through fan fiction or from the author herself.
No, it's in the books.
Is it in the books?
Yeah, it's in the books. Yeah, it's in the books.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's mentioned in the movies. I don't know.
Okay.
Saying that Peeves isn't in the movies, I wouldn't doubt that it's not mentioned.
Yeah.
But now that they're done eating dinner, poof, here's some dessert.
I love dessert.
Yes, I've been eating a lot of sweets lately, and the other day I stepped on the scale, I was like, 204, ooh. And then the next day I stepped on the scale, it said 202, I was like, I'm good.
Good. You're golden. Yeah, you're
I'm
golden.
good.
So now we've got this amazing dessert coming out, and the kids, we start hearing kids, at least the first years, start having conversations about their families. And we get a line that has become probably more quoted than J.K. Rowling could have imagined when she wrote this part. And it's from Seamus Finnegan. And he's talking about, I'm half and half. My dad's a muggle. Mom didn't tell him she was a witch till after they were married. Bit of a nasty shock for him. I don't know.
Right? It's
The bit of a nasty shock, or the I'm half and half. A bit of a nasty
half
shock
and
for
half
him.
is a funny way to word it.
Yeah, I'm half and half.
But could you imagine though? You're with someone for however long they're together, and you get married. Oh, by the way, I'm
Yeah.
a witch.
By the way, I'm a witch.
Which, if it was the other way around,
But at that point,
would it still have been a nasty shock? I don't know.
yeah, by that point,
At that point, it's like, oh, I thought there was something different.
yeah,
There
you
we
look,
go.
you never looked like you were cleaning, but the house was always spotless.
Yes. Oh man.
Yeah,
Could you imagine? Whew. Wow.
I'll be
On
so
my
happy.
days off, they could actually be my days off. It'd be great. It'd be great.
I know. You know what we should do today, babe? Let's disapparate to the Bahamas. Cool, let's
Yes. Yeah.
go. Grab a side along. Let's get it.
That's yes.
All right, so then we find out that Neville, he was raised by his grandmother, and he starts telling the funny tale about his great uncle Algie, kept putting him in
Algie.
life-threatening situations because they weren't sure if he was magic. So, like Harry, growing up with the Dursleys, he had many instances where his kind of magic kind of took over for self-preservation and defense and all that stuff. And I guess Neville didn't have that. And Uncle Algie actually almost had him drowned at one point. But no magic. And then one day he's holding Neville out of a upstairs window, and Great Uncle Algie was offered like a pastry or something. And he's like, yeah. So he lets go of Neville
Accidentally.
for a baked good. And Neville
And they couldn't
bounced.
have been more proud. Oh,
I know. He bounces all the way down the driveway, ends up in the garden, and his gran cried tears of joy. She was so happy.
That's great. That's great.
So while they're swapping stories, you've got Percy and Hermione, and they start talking about lessons, and we learn that transfiguration is a study. So we heard transfiguration earlier. When did we hear transfiguration earlier in the book?
Transfiguration. Did we hear it earlier? Then it would have been. Oh, at the when they met Professor Quirrell. Right? No,
Nope.
he's Defense Against
Nope.
Dark Arts teacher.
No, it was a little throwback, little callback.
Probably the first chapter because Professor McGonagall turns into a cat, into a human. No.
Ollivander talks about Harry's parents' wands, and that Harry's dad's wand was built for transfiguration, but better
okay.
suited towards transfiguration.
Ooh.
So then we learn.
All right.
You're welcome. I've read the books a time or two.
Yeah.
Read the books a time or two. So we learned transfiguration is turning something into something else.
Yes.
And they talk about starting with turning needles into matchsticks or matchsticks into needles. And then Harry looks up at the staff table and he sees Professor Quirrell talking to a teacher with greasy black hair, a hooked nose, and sallow skin. And then, without warning, the teacher with the greasy black hair looked past Professor Quirrell and looked straight into Harry's eyes. And immediately, when they locked eyes, Harry experienced a sharp, hot pain in the scar on his forehead. Now, we're not going to get into it, but I have several theories of why this happened. I have some theories of why this doesn't make sense, but I do have theories of why this happened. But that would take me on a very long meandering, and we won't divulge too much, though probably most of the people listening to this, know everything that we'll talk about. But anyway.
Yeah.
So he claps his hand, to his head. Ow! And Percy's like, "What's up?" He goes, "Nothing. But aside from the pain in his scar, which he should have found very disconcerting because we don't know if this has happened before, he also can't shake the fact that the look that he gave him was like of disdain. Like he could tell that he could tell that professor didn't like him, which wouldn't make any sense at this point. Harry knows nobody.
Yeah.
He asked Percy who that teacher was, and he learned that it's Professor Snape, and that he's the
See,
potions teacher.
the writing is real great because we've if you've read the books, watched the movies, it doesn't matter. We paint Snape as a villain right out the gate. Right out the gate. And if you pay attention, you actually kind of have to pay attention. We find out what he really is, and just the fact that, man, he's just painted the villain right out the gate, and what we know happens and goes down, and it's just great writing to not, well, spoiler alert, I guess. So to not be a villain but play the role as a villain, brilliant. I mean, and who else but Alan Rickman? I mean, put Snape to life and have it be Alan Rickman. Perfect.
Yeah.
And the fact that he knew the ending to Harry Potter, just him and J.K. Rowling.
Just
Nobody else knew.
Only two people in the world.
It fueled his acting, and it.
Well, because he wasn't going to do the role. He wasn't
Yeah.
going to do the role. He read it, and he's like, I don't want to play a teacher that just hates kids. Like, that's not the role for me. So she had to take him aside. Be like, hey, here is Severus Snape that nobody knows about but me. And once they had that conversation, he's like, oh, I'm all in.
That's
I'm all in.
Her telling him that made his character just not just because he knew, I know what I need to do. It's oh man, like talk about a call to action, like bam. Oh, it's great. He's gonna be missed.
Oh yeah,
big time.
Oh, for sure. So all that happens, and we find out that he's, Professor Snape. He's the potions teacher, and that he really would rather have Quirrell's job, who's defensive against the dark arts, because Professor Snape knows a lot about the dark arts. And Harry watches him for a while, and Professor Snape didn't look at him again.
A lot of theories there. A lot we could say, but sometimes we gotta hold our tongue. So after a while, the desserts disappeared. Talk about just magic and cleaning. When we meet the Weasleys at their house, oh man, that part of the dream just makes you want that dream even more.
Yeah.
So now Dumbledore stands up and gives a few more announcements. Okay. You are brand new to this school, and you keep hearing there's no safer place but Hogwarts. Okay. So now we get the first announcements. First years should note that the forest on the grounds is forbidden to all pupils. That voice sucks. And a few of our older students would do well to remember that as well. And I'm pretty sure the Weasleys, he's talking to the Weasley twins directly to them. I can see him staring at them right now. I have also been asked by Mr. Filch, the caretaker, to remind you all that no magic should be used between classes in the corridors, because Filch is a big grouch. Quidditch trials will be held in the second week of the term. Anyone interested in playing for their house team should contact Madam Hooch. And finally, I must tell you that this year, the third floor corridor on the right-hand side is out of bounds to anyone who doesn't wish to die a very painful death. Welcome to Hogwarts. What an introduction.
Safest place.
Yeah. I'm telling you right now, if I go to a school and they tell me there's a chance I might die, I'm going to find a new school. I'm going to tell my mom and dad, I'm not going there. I don't care what you say. It's not happening. He told me I might die.
Man, I got to risk it. I got to risk it to be a wizard. Got to risk it. It's just the third floor corridor on the right-hand side. It's not everywhere else. I can stay away from there. I got no qualms with that.
Well, this is an ongoing theme with the entire series. That
Well, I mean,
Hogwarts is the safest place, but
true.
it's also the complete opposite. It is not a safe place. It is a very dangerous place to be.
Yes.
So Harry laughs, thinking this last announcement is a joke, but nobody else is laughing, and he asks Percy if he's serious, but he's more annoyed that he didn't tell the prefects about it first.
Yeah. Not the fact that there's a place in the castle that you could be killed. He is more annoyed that he wasn't told before
Why
the
didn't
masses.
you tell me? This is something I should have known.
I'm Percy Weasley. I'm a prefect.
Oh, come on,
The
Dumbledore,
greatest,
get your act
the greatest
together.
wizard in the world should have confided in me.
Yes, exactly. I mean, obviously. But then they sing the school song, and I'm not going to sing it again. I don't want to sing it again. I do not like this song. I think the beginning,
yeah.
Hogwarts, Hogwarts, Hoggy, Warty, Hogwarts. If they would have left out Hoggy, Warty, Hogwarts, okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
I can mess with it, but I do not like this song.
No.
So you could either sing it or we can skip it and tell everybody to look it up in the books.
I mean, you could just say it passionately. You don't have to sing it.
It's all you. You got this.
Hogwarts, Hogwarts, Hoggy Warty Hogwarts, teach us something, please. Whether we be old and bald or young with scabby knees, our heads could do with filling with some interesting stuff. For now they're bare and full of air, dead flies and bits of fluff. So teach us things worth knowing. Bring back what we forgot. Just do your best, we'll do the rest, and learn until our brains all rot. It was made for an 11-year-old.
Yes, it is. Well, I think it's made for more of like a 5-year-old, but you know.
Yeah.
It is a child's book, so, but
Yeah.
when you're like, oh, I love Harry Potter, I love it, and then it gets to this part, and then people look at you like, oh, yeah? This is what you love? Uh-huh, yeah. There are some embarrassing things about Harry Potter, I'm not going to lie. I'm a huge fan, but there are points when I'm like, ugh.
Yes.
I wish that was different.
Yes.
One of the central themes to Harry Potter. I wish it was different, but a lot of people would disagree with me, so it is what it is.
Well, they get done singing the song, and then now it's time to go to bed. So the the Gryffindor first years follow Percy out of the Great Hall and up the marble staircase, and Harry gets to see all of the portraits, the mini portraits on the walls. They were talking to each other, pointing at the first years. And they went through some hidden doors. They went up more stairs. Then they came to a stop. And when they came to a stop, they weren't at dormitories, but there were a bunch of walking sticks floating in midair. And then one by one, the sticks began to hurl themselves at the group of students. And that's when we meet Peeves the poltergeist for the first time.
Yes.
So Percy, the prefect, threatens to get the Bloody Baron if Peeves doesn't leave them alone. Percy warns the first years to steer clear of Peeves. He's obviously nothing but good news, or nothing but bad news. And that only the Bloody Baron can control them. This was one of the confusing things about the books. Me, I don't watch scary movies. I don't do horror. That's not my thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But, so you've got the ghosts. You've got the poltergeists. Later, you've got ghouls. You talk about banshees. And I really don't know what the difference between a poltergeist and a ghost is, or what the difference between a poltergeist and a ghoul. I mean, and a banshee. They all seem. I don't know.
I never thought it was of the utmost importance to break it down.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know there's some people out there that get up in arms over the difference between a ghost and a poltergeist.
Sure,
but,
yeah. I don't know.
Because I call Peeves ghost, and then people go, "Oh no, he's not a ghost. He's a poltergeist." Well, he looks like a ghost. I don't know.
I mean, and he can be invisible. Obviously, he can be invisible, and then anyway, so we know that the Bloody Baron. So Peeves leaves. They finally get to a portrait of the fat lady who asks them for the password, and the very first password for the Gryffindor's common room is Caput Draconis. And those passwords become some huge plot points later on in the story, which I love the way she does that. So portrait swings open, and it's interesting. They don't really, I don't know if they really show it this way in the movie, but it says they have to climb through a hole in the wall. So instead of it swinging open, it'd be like, oh, this is our passageway. No, they got like Neville. Neville can't even do it by himself. He can't even climb into the hole to climb through the hole. He's got to be helped to
I'm
get
pretty
through.
sure in the movies it just opens up and it's
And you walk right through, yeah.
Yeah. But it does sound more fun to climb through a hole.
Yeah.
I'd get annoyed of it after. But if I'm 11, if I'm 11, I'm gonna open up that portrait and I'm gonna take a few steps back and see what kind of tricks I could do to get in. So
there you go.
Have fun with it. Yeah.
So they go through, find the Gryffindor common room. The girls are directed to their rooms. Boys are directed to theirs. Harry went up to his room that contained 5 four-poster beds. And we don't know who all of his roommates are at this point. We just know that Ron is there because Ron, it's talking like, oh, wasn't that dessert great? But they were exhausted, and Harry falls asleep.
I would get along with Ron.
Ron is the foodie.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Hey, I kind of want to go over here to eat. I don't know. It's kind of late. I don't really have enough money. Hey, let's go, mate. Let's go. Let's
do it. Yeah.
Get rid of that attitude.
Yeah. So Harry falls asleep immediately, and then he has this dream, and this is what the book says. He was wearing Professor Quirrell's turban, which kept talking to him, telling him he must transfer to Slytherin at once because it was his destiny. Harry told the turban he didn't want to be in Slytherin. It got heavier and heavier. He tried to pull it off, but it tightened painfully. And there was Malfoy, laughing at him as he struggled with it. Then Malfoy turned into the hook-nosed teacher Snape, whose laugh became high and cold. There was a burst of green light. And then Harry wakes up. He rolls over, he goes back to sleep, and in the morning, he didn't remember the dream. And that's how our chapter ends.
So, spoiler, if you don't
I love a good spoiler.
want to hear this, skip forward a couple seconds, a minute or two. So, I just thought of this as you were saying it, which I would imagine has been brought up a lot. But the turban is talking to him, telling him he must transfer into Slytherin at once. We know that Voldemort is extremely, like an expert in legilimens. Was that Voldemort talking to Harry Potter in his dreams? Was Voldemort controlling Harry Potter's thoughts right there?
I don't think so. Only because it's not consistent with how it works in the fifth book.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, because he is in flesh form, but obviously not as strong as he is. He's very strong, a lot stronger in the 5th year. But yes.
Yes, we'll have to hold our tongues yet again.
Yeah, I know. There's like, oh man.
Okay, so thus far, where would you rank this chapter? This is chapter 7.
Oh, top 7, easily.
Yes,
easily.
okay.
Definitely in the top 7 chapters.
I don't even think I need to ask, but was this chapter important? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it?
Every chapter so far has been vitally important. You're introducing the fantasy world of Harry Potter. And so, and I've said this once, I'll say it 1,000 times more. I love that throughout the 7 books, even in the very last book, we are drawing from, we're coming back to information that she introduces now.
Yes.
Right? So having, obviously you and I knowing how this book ends, knowing how this series ends, just knowing that she's introducing us, she's leaving those breadcrumbs
That's
even
crazy.
even in these first few chapters. Especially this one.
Us talking about the books and the way that we're talking about it, we could be wrong about so much, but just imagine how much she already had put. She knew, you say she knew the ending already by book one, right?
Well, I know that before she wrote book 3, she had already written the epilogue.
Yeah, so
So that was kind of her, if whenever she veered, that epilogue got her back on track of how, because
Yeah,
there's different things throughout the books. Like, oh, we were originally going to have this character die, but we had this character die. Oh, and it was actually going to be this character that did this, but it wound up being this character.
Yeah.
None of that, kind of faltered the eventuality of the epilogue. So
just
I love the plot. I love the plot of Harry Potter.
Yes.
Obviously, this early on, you and I and most of the people that have read the books, watched the films, can pick out some inconsistencies.
well,
But I think
imagine
from
being
books,
the writer for 7 books. I mean, you're gonna forget stuff here and there and get stuff mixed
Sure.
up. Like
Sure.
I'd imagine sitting down with her and picking her brain. Depending on when you do that, years apart, months apart, she might give you
Yeah.
a different answer because
Yeah.
maybe this makes more sense, or maybe she forgot what she said. I
Yeah.
mean, it is fantasy, so unless you're writing everything down, even if you're writing everything down, how are you supposed to go in there and find exactly what you just said
how do you
3 years
catalog
ago?
that? Yeah, how do you catalog?
it's-
Because she had a box of writings. Before even writing this book, she had been writing stories for Harry Potter, scenes and stuff for 5 years. So she's got 5 years in a
I
box.
couldn't even imagine it.
And then she starts putting a book together.
It's like
It's like,
being in
oh
school
my
and you're
gosh.
taking notes, and then you go to look back at your notes and you're completely lost because you've written
Yeah.
down way too much. And
Yeah.
no, okay, no.
Yeah.
So, that being said, that's chapter 7. Join us next time for chapter 8, The Potions Master. And if you guys are listening to us, I'm going to ask if you want to go ahead and share our podcast. We would be very appreciative, and we
Sure.
thank you very much for listening to us. This podcast, we're just trying to keep the magic alive. We're trying to sit down and relax and just kind of unwind from the day, and hopefully you guys are all doing the same thing. If you guys want to get a hold of us, you can email us at squibscorner@gmail.com. You can email me or get in touch with me directly right now at Akio Potter Guy. At some point, I do plan on, maybe by the time this is out, we already have a Squibs Corner Instagram. But for the time being, Akio Potter Guy, it's fine. It's fine. You
Yeah.
can send us voice memos, whatever you want. And, Andrew, go ahead and sign us out.
Typically, we would sign out with a quote.
Yeah.
And I haven't written a quote down, so I will use a quote from the greatest wizard in the world. And it will be nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak. Thank you.